Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you felt ambushed, your words twisted, and your composure slipping away? It's an unsettling experience, that feeling of being backed into a corner, especially when you started the conversation with the best of intentions. This isn't about disagreeing respectfully, it's about encountering a particular breed of conversational opponent, the bully. They lurk in everyday interactions, waiting to pounce on an unsuspecting conversational partner. These aren't your stereotypical playground aggressors. They're often subtle, employing sly tactics to manipulate the conversation and leave you feeling flustered and foolish. You walk away questioning yourself, wondering how a simple exchange escalated into a verbal brawl. It can happen to anyone, regardless of how articulate or quick-witted you are. What if there were ways to not only recognize these tactics, but also disarm them effectively? What if you could navigate these conversational minefields with grace and confidence, emerging with your dignity intact? That's exactly what we'll explore in this essay, how to outsmart conversational bullies and take control of your interactions. We'll delve into the tactics these bullies employ, expose their hidden strategies, and equip you with the tools to counter their manipulative maneuvers. You'll learn to recognize the subtle signs, stand your ground, and steer the conversation toward a more respectful and productive path. This is about empowering yourself, finding your voice, and refusing to be bullied into silence or submission. To illustrate these conversational dynamics, we'll turn to a compelling case study, the now infamous interview between journalist Kathy Newman and clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson. This exchange, widely shared and debated, serves as a masterclass in conversational bullying tactics and how to counter them. Throughout the interview, Newman employs a range of manipulative techniques, attempting to corner Peterson and portray him in a negative light. We'll dissect these tactics in detail, analyzing Newman's language, tone, and line of questioning. You'll see how she attempts to put words in Peterson's mouth, frame his arguments in a distorted manner, and elicit reactions that fit her predetermined narrative. This isn't about agreeing or disagreeing with either individual, it's about understanding the conversational strategies at play. Peterson, for his part, demonstrates remarkable composure and awareness. He consistently identifies Newman's tactics, calmly calls them out, and refuses to be baited into defensive reactions. He provides a masterclass in maintaining composure, dismantling manipulative arguments, and advocating for his perspectives with clarity and respect. By analyzing this interview, we'll gain valuable insights into the minds of conversational bullies and learn practical strategies to counter their tactics. You'll develop the skills to recognize these behaviors in real time and respond in a way that maintains your composure and protects your intellectual integrity. This is not about winning arguments or silencing opposing viewpoints. Instead, our goal is to equip you with the skills to navigate challenging conversations with confidence and integrity. It's about recognizing when you're being manipulated, standing up for your right to express yourself freely, and refusing to be bullied into submission. Think of this as a form of conversational self-defense. Just as learning physical self-defense techniques empowers you to protect yourself from physical harm, mastering conversational self-defense equips you to protect yourself from verbal attacks and manipulation. It's about recognizing the signs of a conversational bully, understanding their tactics, and knowing how to respond effectively. Throughout this essay, we'll break down specific strategies to help you achieve this goal. You'll learn to identify the common tactics employed by conversational bullies, understand the psychology behind their behavior, and develop effective counter-strategies to disarm their attempts to manipulate you. We'll provide real-world examples, practical exercises, and actionable advice that you can immediately implement in your own conversations. Remember, mastering conversational self-defense is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to engage in self-reflection. But the rewards are well worth the effort. By developing these skills, you'll not only become a more confident and effective communicator, but you'll also be empowered to create more respectful, productive, and meaningful conversations. Imagine you're having a seemingly normal conversation and suddenly the other person's tone shifts. Their voice might take on a sharper edge, their words dripping with subtle sarcasm. These seemingly small changes in tone and word choice often serve as the first warning signs of a conversational bully preparing to strike. They might start using loaded words, terms designed to evoke negative emotions or cast doubt on your credibility. Phrases like "you always" or "you never" are classic examples, painting you in a corner with broad generalizations. These subtle shifts in language often go unnoticed in the heat of the moment, but they lay the groundwork for a manipulative conversational strategy. It's crucial to pay close attention to these early cues, as they often reveal the other person's true intentions. Their body language might also change, becoming more closed off or aggressive. They might interrupt you more frequently, dismiss your points with a wave of their hand, or roll their eyes in a display of dismissiveness. Think back to conversations where you felt pressured or uncomfortable. Can you recall specific words or phrases the other person used that made you feel defensive or attacked? Recognizing these patterns is the first step in protecting yourself from conversational bullies. Section 2. The power of admit and divisive. Let's revisit the Peterson interview and examine how seemingly innocuous words can be weaponized in the hands of a skilled conversational bully. When Newman asked Peterson, and it's mostly "you admit," it's mostly men listening, the word "admit" speaks volumes. It implies that Peterson is reluctantly acknowledging a fault, framing his audience demographics as a problem that requires an admission of guilt. Similarly, when Newman asks, "Does it bother you that your audience is predominantly male? Is that a bit divisive?" the word "divisive" carries significant weight. It suggests that Peterson is intentionally creating a rift or separation between genders, even if his message doesn't explicitly state that. These carefully chosen words are designed to paint Peterson in a negative light, framing his perspectives as problematic or harmful. They subtly influence the listener's perception, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion. By dissecting the language used in this exchange, we can learn to identify similar tactics in our own conversations. When you hear words like admit, divisive, or other emotionally charged terms, consider the underlying message being conveyed. Is the other person genuinely seeking information, or are they attempting to manipulate the conversation to their advantage? Section 3. Recognizing the setup, anticipating the attack. Conversational bullies often reveal their intentions early on, even if it's done subtly. They might start by making passive-aggressive comments disguised as innocent observations. These seemingly harmless remarks often serve as a setup, a way to test your boundaries and gauge your willingness to engage in conflict. A classic example is the phrase, "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?" This seemingly simple question often carries an accusatory tone, implying that you're in the wrong and need to defend yourself. It's a subtle way of putting you on the defensive, shifting the power dynamic in their favor. If you find yourself on the receiving end of such a question, be prepared. The other person is likely setting a trap, waiting for you to say something they can twist or misinterpret. They're looking for an opportunity to pounce, to turn your words against you and solidify their position of power. Section 4. The importance of careful listening. One of the most effective ways to counter conversational bullies is to become a more attentive and discerning listener. This means paying close attention not just to the words being spoken, but also to the tone, body language, and underlying message being conveyed. When you listen carefully, you're more likely to pick up on subtle cues that reveal the other person's true intentions. You'll notice shifts in tone, loaded words, and manipulative phrasing that might otherwise go unnoticed. This heightened awareness allows you to anticipate their moves and respond strategically rather than reactively. Careful listening also involves paying attention to what's being said. What assumptions are being made? What information is being omitted or distorted? By listening for these unspoken elements, you gain a deeper understanding of the other person's agenda and can address their underlying concerns more effectively. In the next section, we'll explore specific conversational traps that bullies often employ, equipping you with the knowledge and skills to recognize and dismantle them. By mastering these techniques, you'll be well prepared to navigate challenging conversations with confidence and grace. Section 1. Anatomy of the So You're Saying Trap. The So You're Saying Trap is a classic conversational bully tactic designed to back you into a corner and make you defend an exaggerated or completely fabricated version of your own argument. It's a form of intellectual dishonesty that thrives on misrepresentation and distortion. Here's how it typically works. The conversational bully, after listening to a portion of your perspective, will interject with a statement that begins with the phrase, "So you're saying," followed by a gross oversimplification, misinterpretation, or outright fabrication of your position. This distorted version is usually more extreme, inflammatory, or easier to argue against than your original point. The goal of this tactic is twofold. First, it allows the bully to shift the focus away from your actual argument and onto a straw man, a weaker, easily debunked version that they've constructed. This makes it seem like they've addressed your point when they've actually just attacked a caricature of it. Second, this trap puts you on the defensive. You're now in the position of having to clarify your position and correct their misrepresentation, which can make you appear flustered, inarticulate, or even guilty of something you didn't say. Section 2. Examples of the trap in action, twisting words and meanings. Let's look at some examples of the So You're Saying trap from the Newman-Peterson interview to illustrate how subtly this tactic can be employed. Example 1. When Peterson discusses the biological underpinnings of some gender differences, Newman jumps in with, "So you're saying women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity?" Peterson never implied any such duty, but Newman's framing makes it seem like he's advocating for a burden to be placed on women. Example 2. In another instance, when Peterson critiques certain aspects of radical feminist ideology, Newman interjects with, "So you're saying that anyone who believes in equality, whether you call them feminists or whatever you want to call them, should basically give up because it ain't going to happen." Again, Peterson never suggested that advocating for equality is futile, but Newman's loaded question paints him as a defeatist opposed to progress. These examples demonstrate the manipulative power of this tactic. By twisting Peterson's words and presenting a distorted version of his argument, Newman attempts to control the narrative and put him on the defensive. Think about your own conversations. Have you ever had someone sum up your point in a way that felt completely off base? Recognizing this pattern is crucial to avoiding the trap. Section 3. Dismantling the trap: clarity, repetition, and gentle correction. The key to disarming the So You're Saying trap lies in recognizing it early and responding with clarity, repetition, and gentle but firm correction. Here's a step-by-step approach. 1. Identify the trap. The moment you hear the phrase, "So you're saying," followed by a misrepresentation of your point, recognize that you're being drawn into a trap. Resist the urge to react defensively or get pulled into arguing against their distorted version. 2. Calmly interrupt. Don't let the bully control the narrative. Calmly interrupt and say something like, "Let me clarify," or "That's not quite what I meant." This signals that you won't let them mischaracterize your position. 3. Reiterate your point. Clearly and concisely restate your original point, emphasizing the aspects that were misrepresented or omitted. For example, you might say, "What I actually said was," or "My point is." 4. Gently correct the misrepresentation. Without being accusatory or aggressive, point out the flaw in their interpretation. You might say, "It seems like you're suggesting that I said their misrepresentation, but that's not accurate." 5. Refocus the conversation. Once you've clarified your position, steer the conversation back to the main point you were trying to make. This prevents the bully from derailing the discussion with their distortions. Section 4. The importance of maintaining composure. Throughout this process, it's crucial to maintain your composure. Conversational bullies often thrive on provoking emotional reactions. By remaining calm and collected, you deny them the satisfaction of seeing you flustered or defensive. Remember, your demeanor speaks volumes. If you respond with anger or frustration, it can make you appear unreasonable, even if you're in the right. A calm, measured response, on the other hand, conveys confidence and intellectual honesty. Take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and respond with grace and clarity. This will not only help you disarm the bully's tactics, but also demonstrate to any observers that you are a thoughtful and articulate communicator. Section 1. Unveiling the hidden assumptions disguised as questions. Conversational bullies often employ a particularly insidious tactic, hiding their true intentions beneath a veneer of seemingly innocent questions. These aren't genuine inquiries seeking clarification. They're carefully crafted maneuvers designed to plant seeds of doubt and manipulate your position. The danger lies in their subtlety. These hidden presuppositions can easily slip past your defenses if you're not paying close attention. Imagine this. You're discussing a complex social issue and the other person asks, "Why do you think it's acceptable to ignore the plight of those affected?" On the surface, it might seem like a straightforward question. However, embedded within it is the presupposition that you ignoring the issue, framing you as callous or indifferent. These hidden assumptions act like conversational landmines, waiting to be triggered. If you answer the question directly, you inadvertently validate their premise, even if you disagree with it. You're left defending yourself against an accusation that was never explicitly stated, but cleverly woven into the fabric of the conversation. The key to disarming this tactic is to develop a heightened awareness of the subtext beneath the surface. Train yourself to listen not just to the words themselves, but to the unspoken assumptions they carry. Section 2. The assuming the sale tactic, planting seeds of doubt. In the world of sales, there's a technique known as assuming the sale. The salesperson, instead of asking if you to purchase the product, starts talking about delivery options or financing plans, subtly implying that the decision to buy has already been made. This tactic, while often effective in a sales context, can be equally manipulative in everyday conversations. Conversational bullies use a similar strategy, embedding presuppositions into their questions to subtly influence your thinking. For instance, instead of asking, "Do you believe this policy is fair?" they might say, "When did you realize this policy was inherently unfair?" The question itself assumes the policy's unfairness, subtly nudging you towards that conclusion. This tactic is particularly effective because it bypasses our conscious defenses. When someone asks a direct question, we tend to evaluate its validity. However, when a presupposition is slipped in under the radar, we're more likely to accept it without scrutiny, especially if we're not fully engaged in the conversation. By mastering the art of identifying these hidden assumptions, you can avoid falling prey to this manipulative tactic and maintain control of your own position in the conversation. Section 3. Case studies exposing hidden presuppositions in action. Let's return to the Newman-Peterson interview to examine how this tactic plays out in a real-world exchange. In one instance, Newman asks Peterson, why should women put up with those reasons? This seemingly simple question contains several hidden presuppositions. First, they're reasons that women should have to put up with. This frames the conversation as one of inherent inequality or disadvantage faced by women. Second, Peterson believes that women put up with these reasons. This paints him as someone who endorses or condones this perceived inequality. By embedding these assumptions into her question, Newman attempts to back Peterson into a corner. If he answers directly, he risks validating her framing and appearing insensitive. However, if he challenges the presuppositions, he risks appearing evasive or unwilling to address the issue. In another example, Newman asks, but why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children? The hidden presupposition here is that Peterson believes women have this right, framing him as an opponent of women's autonomy. These examples highlight the importance of being vigilant in identifying and addressing hidden presuppositions. Failure to do so allows the conversational bully to control the narrative and manipulate your position. Section 4. Mastering the countermove, identifying and addressing the unsaid. The first step in countering hidden presuppositions is to develop the habit of listening for them. This requires a shift from passive hearing to active listening, engaging with the subtext as much as the surface text. Here are some strategies to sharpen your detection skills. First, pay attention to your gut. If a question makes you feel uncomfortable, defensive, or like you're being cornered, there's a good chance it contains hidden presuppositions. Second, listen for qualifying words. Phrases like why should, when did you, or how can you often signal an embedded assumption. Third, consider the unspoken. Ask yourself, what is the speaker assuming to be true in order for this question to make sense? Once you've identified a hidden presupposition, you have several options for addressing it. You can directly challenge the assumption by saying something like, I think your question is based on the assumption that, state the presupposition, which I don't agree with. You can reframe the question by rephrasing it in a way that removes the hidden assumption. For example, you might say, I think a more accurate question would be, or you can ignore the question and address the assumption. Instead of directly answering, address the underlying assumption. For example, you might say, before we discuss why women might or might not put up with something, I think it's important to examine whether, by mastering the art of identifying and addressing hidden presuppositions, you can take control of the conversational chessboard and avoid being manipulated by these subtle but powerful tactics. Section 1. Understanding the smash technique. A barrage of blends. Imagine this, you're in a conversation and the other person starts peppering you with a rapid-fire succession of questions, assertions and half-formed arguments, all seamlessly blended together. Before you can fully process one point, they've moved on to the next, creating a dizzying whirlwind of words that leaves you feeling disoriented and unable to respond effectively. This, my friends, is the essence of the smash technique, a favored tool in the conversational bully's arsenal. Unlike the so you're saying trap, which relies on misrepresenting your argument, the smash technique aims to overwhelm your cognitive processing by bombarding you with a chaotic mix of information. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose of rhetoric. You're inundated with so much input that you can't possibly absorb or address it all. This tactic often involves blending together distinct points, blurring the lines between questions, accusations, and emotional appeals. The conversational bully might jump between different aspects of a topic, seamlessly transitioning from statistics to anecdotes to hypothetical scenarios, all without giving you a chance to catch your breath or formulate a coherent response. The goal here is not necessarily to engage in a meaningful exchange of ideas, but rather to dominate the conversational landscape, leaving you feeling intellectually bulldozed and unsure of how to regain your footing. Section 2. Dissecting the tactic, how smashing aims to overwhelm. To effectively counter the smash technique, it's crucial to understand the psychological mechanisms that make it so effective. By dissecting the tactic, we can expose its weaknesses and develop strategies to neutralize its impact. First and foremost, the smash technique exploits the limitations of our working memory. We can only hold a limited amount of information in our minds at any given time. When we're bombarded with a rapid-fire sequence of points, our working memory becomes overloaded, making it difficult to track the flow of the conversation, remember specific details, or formulate coherent responses. Secondly, this tactic often triggers a stress response. When we feel overwhelmed or attacked, our bodies release cortisol and adrenaline, hormones that prepare us for a fight or flight response. This can lead to a range of physiological and cognitive changes, including increased heart rate, shallow breathing, and difficulty concentrating. In this heightened state of arousal, our ability to think clearly and respond effectively is compromised. Finally, the smash technique often incorporates emotionally charged language and manipulative rhetoric designed to evoke strong feelings of anger, fear, or guilt. This emotional hijacking further diminishes our capacity for rational thought and reasoned argumentation, making us more susceptible to the bully's manipulations. Section 3. The power of slowing down, strategic pauses and focused responses. One of the most effective ways to counter the smash technique is to resist the urge to match the bully's pace and intensity. Instead, focus on slowing down the tempo of the conversation, creating space for yourself to think clearly and respond strategically. Here are some specific techniques to help you achieve this. 1. The strategic pause. Don't feel pressured to answer immediately. Take a moment to collect your thoughts, take a deep breath, and gather your composure. A well-placed pause can disrupt the bully's momentum and give you time to regain control of the conversation. 2. The clarification request. If the other person is throwing out multiple points at once, politely interrupt and ask for clarification. You might say something like, "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that last part. Could you repeat that?" Or, "I want to make sure I understand your point. Are you saying?" 3. The focused response. Instead of trying to address every point the bully makes, choose one or two that you feel are most important or relevant. This allows you to engage with their argument on your own terms without getting bogged down in a tangential debate. 4. The tempo shift. Consciously slow down your own speaking pace. This not only gives you more time to think, but also conveys a sense of calmness and control that can be disarming to a bully. Section 4. Maintaining focus, avoiding the derailment trap. The smash technique is often used as a derailment tactic, designed to pull you off your main point and into a series of tangential arguments that benefit the bully's agenda. To avoid falling into this trap, it's crucial to maintain focus on the core issue at hand. If you find yourself getting sidetracked, gently but firmly steer the conversation back to the main point. You might say something like, "That's an interesting point, but I think it's important to remember that we were originally discussing," or, "I'm happy to address that later, but for now I'd like to stay focused on," remember, you're under no obligation to address every point the bully raises, especially if those points are irrelevant, misleading, or designed to provoke an emotional reaction. By maintaining a clear sense of your own goals for the conversation, you can avoid getting lost in the weeds and stay focused on the issues that matter most. The power of posture, how your body influences your mind. In the midst of a heated exchange, it's easy to become consumed by the verbal sparring, focusing solely on crafting the perfect retort or dismantling the other person's argument. However, there's a powerful force at play that often goes unnoticed in these moments: our own bodies. Just as our thoughts and emotions can influence our physical sensations, so too can our posture, breathing, and even facial expressions profoundly impact our mental state and our ability to handle difficult conversations. This mind-body connection is deeply rooted in our neurobiology. When we adopt a tense, closed-off posture, our brains receive signals that we're in danger, triggering the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This physiological shift prepares us for a fight or flight response, narrowing our focus, increasing our heart rate, and often making us more reactive and less capable of nuanced thought. Conversely, when we consciously adopt a relaxed, open posture, we send signals of safety and calmness to our brains. This allows us to think more clearly, regulate our emotions more effectively, and respond to challenging situations with greater composure and intentionality. In the context of a conversation with a bully, this shift in posture can be a game changer, transforming us from a reactive target into a calm and collected force to be reckoned with. Think about your own experiences in challenging conversations. Do you tend to tense up, hunch your shoulders, or cross your arms defensively? Or do you maintain an open stance, relaxed shoulders, and a neutral facial expression? Becoming aware of your own body language is the first step in harnessing its power to navigate these situations with greater ease and confidence. Creating mental space. The importance of pausing. In the fast-paced world of verbal sparring, silence is often seen as a sign of weakness, a conversational vacuum quickly filled by the other person's words. However, when strategically employed, pausing can be one of the most powerful tools in your conversational arsenal, allowing you to regain control, gather your thoughts, and respond with intentionality rather than reactivity. When we're bombarded with a barrage of questions, accusations, or manipulative language, our natural instinct is to defend ourselves, to immediately counter with a witty retort or a point-by-point rebuttal. However, this reactive approach often plays right into the bully's hands, feeding their need for control and escalating the conflict. Pausing, on the other hand, allows us to break free from this reactive cycle. It creates a mental space, a buffer zone between the stimulus, the bully's words, and our response. In this space, we can observe our own thoughts and emotions, choose our words carefully, and respond in a way that aligns with our values and goals for the conversation. Think of pausing as a conversational reset button. It allows you to momentarily disengage from the back and forth, take a step back, and reassess the situation. This momentary pause can be incredibly disarming to a bully who thrives on your immediate reactions. It signals that you're not going to be rushed or pressured into a response, that you're in control of your own thoughts and emotions. In the next section, we'll explore specific techniques for incorporating strategic pauses into your conversations, transforming them from awkward silences into powerful tools for maintaining composure and steering the conversation in a more productive direction. Beyond words, the role of frames in conversational dynamics. While we often focus on the specific words used in a conversation, there's a deeper level at play, a hidden framework that shapes our understanding of the interaction and influences our responses. These frameworks, known as frames, act like mental filters, shaping our perceptions, interpretations, and ultimately our behavior. Imagine two people watching a political debate. One person, viewing the debate through a frame of partisan loyalty, might interpret every statement as a sign of their chosen party's brilliance or the opposition's incompetence. The other person, viewing the same debate through a frame of critical thinking, might analyze each argument based on its merits, regardless of party affiliation. In conversations, frames operate in a similar way, shaping our understanding of the situation and influencing our responses. For example, if someone approaches a conversation with a frame of competition, they might view every disagreement as a battle to be won, prioritizing their own victory over mutual understanding. Conversely, someone approaching the same conversation with a frame of collaboration might view disagreements as opportunities for shared learning and growth. Conversational bullies often excel at framing conversations in ways that benefit their agenda. They might frame themselves as the authority figure, the victim, or the morally superior party, subtly influencing your perception of the interaction and making it more difficult to assert yourself. By understanding the concept of frames, we can become more aware of how they're being used to manipulate conversations and develop strategies to reframe the situation in ways that serve our own goals and values. Section 4. Embracing a relaxed posture, a visual demonstration. To illustrate the power of posture, let's take a moment to experience it firsthand. Find a comfortable position where you can sit or stand with your back straight. Now, consciously tense your shoulders, raising them up towards your ears. Notice how this feels in your body. You might feel a tightness in your chest, a sense of constriction, or a subtle increase in anxiety. Now slowly release your shoulders, letting them drop back and down away from your ears. Feel the difference as you relax your arms, unclench your jaw, and soften your gaze. Notice how this shift in posture creates a sense of ease, openness, and calmness within your body. This relaxed yet alert state is the ideal physical and mental space from which to engage in challenging conversations. Throughout your interactions with conversational bullies, periodically check in with your body. Are you holding tension in your shoulders, jaw, or hands? Are you frowning or furrowing your brow? If so, gently remind yourself to relax those muscles, soften your expression, and return to a more open and receptive posture. By practicing this simple yet powerful technique, you'll not only reduce your own stress levels, but also project an aura of calmness and composure that can be disarming to a bully, shifting the power dynamic and creating space for a more productive and respectful exchange. Section 1. Beyond winning, the art of persuasion in challenging conversations. In the heat of a confrontation with a conversational bully, it's tempting to approach the interaction as a battle to be won, a verbal duel where the goal is to emerge victorious, armed with irrefutable logic and witty retorts. However, this adversarial mindset often backfires, leading to a stalemate where both parties dig in their heels, unwilling to budge from their entrenched positions. True persuasion, especially in the face of aggression or manipulation, requires a more nuanced approach, one rooted in understanding, empathy, and a genuine desire to connect. It's not about crushing your opponent with the sheer force of your intellect, but rather about building bridges of understanding, gently guiding them towards a new perspective without resorting to the same bullying tactics they employ. This doesn't mean abandoning your own convictions or shying away from expressing your truth. It simply means shifting your focus from winning the argument to winning over the person. It's about recognizing that beneath the bluster and bravado, even the most ardent bully is driven by a desire to be heard, understood, and validated. By tapping into this shared humanity, we can create an opening for genuine dialogue and perhaps even a shift in perspective. Remember, persuasion is not about coercion or manipulation. It's about creating an environment where the other person feels safe enough to let go of their defenses and genuinely consider a different point of view. It's about planting seeds of doubt, sparking curiosity, and inviting them to join you on a journey of shared exploration. Section 2. Building bridges, not strawmen, engaging with authenticity and respect. One of the most common pitfalls in arguments, especially with those skilled in the art of conversational manipulation, is the tendency to fall prey to the strawman fallacy. This occurs when we misrepresent our opponent's argument, attacking a weaker, easily debunked version rather than engaging with their actual point. While it might seem like a clever tactic in the moment, resorting to straw man arguments ultimately undermines your credibility and damages the possibility of genuine dialogue. It signals to the other person that you're not truly listening, that you're more interested in scoring points than in understanding their perspective. To build bridges of understanding, we must first demonstrate that we're willing to meet the other person where they are, to grapple with their ideas in good faith, even if we find them flawed or disagreeable. This requires a commitment to active listening, seeking to understand the underlying motivations, experiences, and values that shape their worldview. When we engage with authenticity and respect, we create a space for vulnerability and connection. We demonstrate that we value the other person, even if we disagree with their ideas. This doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but it does mean approaching the conversation with a spirit of curiosity and a willingness to see the world through their eyes. Remember, people are more likely to open their minds to new ideas when they feel heard, respected, and valued. By building bridges of understanding rather than straw men of contention, we create a foundation for meaningful dialogue and the possibility of genuine persuasion. The power of visuals, painting pictures with your words. When it comes to persuasion, abstract concepts and logical arguments often fall short. Our brains are wired for stories, for vivid imagery that captures our imaginations and evokes emotional resonance. By incorporating visuals into our language, we can bypass the intellectual defenses that often arise in heated exchanges and connect with the other person on a deeper, more visceral level. Think about the difference between these two statements. Climate change is a serious threat that requires immediate action. Imagine a future where coastal cities are swallowed by rising seas, where extreme weather events become the norm, and where millions are displaced from their homes due to climate change. The first statement, while factually accurate, lacks the emotional punch of the second. By painting a vivid picture of the potential consequences of inaction, the second statement is more likely to grab the listener's attention, evoke a sense of urgency, and inspire them to take action. This principle applies not only to grand-scale issues like climate change, but also to everyday conversations. When you're trying to persuade someone, especially a conversational bully, look for opportunities to ground your arguments in concrete examples, relatable stories, and vivid imagery. Instead of saying, "This policy is unfair," you might say, "Imagine being a single parent working 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet, and then being told that you no longer qualify for this essential program because of this policy." By putting a human face on the issue, you're more likely to evoke empathy, understanding, and a willingness to reconsider. Finding common ground by aligning with deeper values is one of the most effective ways to persuade someone, especially if they are resistant to your point of view. This doesn't mean compromising your own principles. It simply means finding points of intersection where your values overlap, creating a sense of common ground from which to build a bridge of understanding. For example, imagine you're discussing a controversial social issue with someone who holds opposing views. Instead of focusing on the points of disagreement, try to identify underlying values that you both share, such as a belief in fairness, a desire for justice, or a commitment to the well-being of future generations. Once you've identified these shared values, you can reframe your arguments in a way that resonates with their worldview. For instance, instead of arguing for a particular policy based on your own political ideology, you might frame it as a way to promote fairness, ensure justice, or protect the well-being of future generations, values that you both hold dear. This approach can be particularly effective with conversational bullies who often use their words to assert their dominance and control the narrative. By finding common ground and aligning with their deeper values, you can shift the power dynamic, creating an environment where they feel heard, understood, and more open to considering a different perspective. Remember, persuasion is not about imposing your will on another person, but rather about inviting them to join you on a journey of shared understanding. By finding common ground, building bridges of empathy, and framing your arguments in a way that resonates with their values, you can create the conditions for genuine dialogue and perhaps even a change of heart. As we conclude our exploration of conversational bullying and the strategies to counter it, it's crucial to remember that this is not about becoming invincible in every verbal sparring match. It's not about silencing opposing viewpoints or always having the last word. Instead, mastering the art of conversational self-defense is about empowering yourself to navigate challenging interactions with grace, integrity, and a firm commitment to your own intellectual sovereignty. Throughout this essay, we've delved into the subtle tactics employed by conversational bullies, exposing their manipulative techniques and dissecting the psychological mechanisms that make them so effective. We've explored the "so you're saying" trap, the danger of hidden presuppositions, and the overwhelming nature of the smash technique. By shining a light on these tactics, we've equipped ourselves with the awareness needed to recognize them in real time, preventing us from falling prey to their manipulative power. But awareness is only the first step. We've also explored a range of practical strategies to counter these tactics, from calmly correcting misrepresentations to strategically pausing to regain control of the conversation. We've learned the importance of maintaining our composure even in the face of provocation, recognizing that our body language and tone of voice speak volumes. We've explored the power of visuals in persuasion, the importance of building bridges rather than straw men, and the effectiveness of finding common ground by aligning with shared values. These techniques, when practiced and internalized, can transform us from passive targets into skillful conversationalists capable of holding our own in challenging exchanges without resorting to the same bullying tactics often employed against us. The journey from feeling bullied in conversations to confidently navigating them is a process of empowerment. It's about recognizing that you have the right to express yourself freely, to be heard and respected even when engaging with those who hold opposing views. This shift begins with cultivating a deep sense of self-awareness. Pay attention to your own patterns in conversations. Do you tend to shrink back, allowing others to dominate the space? Do you become defensive or aggressive when challenged, or do you approach conversations with a spirit of openness and curiosity, eager to engage with different perspectives? Once you've identified your own tendencies, you can begin to make conscious choices about how you want to show up in these interactions. Remember, you have a voice and it deserves to be heard. Don't be afraid to speak your truth, even if it challenges the status quo or ruffles a few feathers. As you become more confident in expressing your own thoughts and ideas, you'll find that you're less likely to be drawn into the traps set by conversational bullies. You'll be able to maintain your composure, address their tactics directly, and steer the conversation in a more productive direction. This doesn't mean you'll win every argument or change every heart, but it does mean you'll walk away from these interactions with your dignity intact, your intellectual sovereignty affirmed, and a sense of empowerment knowing that you showed up as your authentic self, even in the face of adversity. The journey of mastering conversational self-defense is an ongoing process, one that requires ongoing reflection, practice, and a willingness to learn from our experiences. Just as we wouldn't expect to become experts in physical self-defense after reading a single book or attending a single workshop, so too must we approach conversational self-defense as a lifelong pursuit of growth and mastery. As you continue on this journey, here are a few resources and reflections to support your development. Seek out mentors and role models. Pay attention to skilled communicators in your own life. How do they handle challenging conversations? What techniques do they employ to maintain their composure, disarm aggression, and steer the conversation in a positive direction? Engage in deliberate practice. Look for opportunities to practice these skills in low-stakes environments. Volunteer to facilitate a discussion group, participate in a public speaking club, or simply engage in more thoughtful conversations with friends and family. Study the art of communication. There are countless books, articles, and podcasts dedicated to the art of communication, persuasion, and conflict resolution. Explore these resources to deepen your understanding and expand your toolkit. Reflect on your experiences. After every challenging conversation, take some time to reflect on what went well, what could have been handled differently, and what you learned from the experience. This ongoing process of self-reflection is essential for growth and mastery. Remember, the goal is not to become a conversational ninja, capable of verbally disarming anyone who crosses your path. Instead, the true measure of success lies in your ability to engage in meaningful, respectful dialogue, even in the face of disagreement, and to walk away from these interactions feeling empowered, not depleted.